Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Holy frickin' moly, I mean, just when you think it couldn't get any worse, political leaders in Canada say, hold my beer. It's almost unbelievable. I mean, it's unfathomable. Canada is becoming unrecognizable. What used to be a peaceful, tolerant Western democracy seems to be devolving into some sort of woke authoritarian joke where anybody perceived as right-wing or, God forbid, Christian is treated like a damn criminal. The discrimination and the double standard is just becoming so obvious. Canadian leadership seems to pick and choose which expressions of faith or ideology are acceptable and which are not. And the latest crackdown on a Christian worship event in Montreal basically proves it. I'm sure the excuse here is law and safety, right? And I'm sure there's going to be people saying there's a valid excuse for what happened here, law and order or public safety or some nonsense. But obviously it's about control. Obviously it's about ideology. It's about punishing those who don't submit to the radical progressive orthodoxy. The crackdown started during COVID and I guess it continues into 2025. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. The topic of this video is Canada is falling. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so here's what just happened in Montreal. We've got a Christian church in the city that held an outdoor worship event near the St. Joseph Oratory. And this event wasn't a protest, it wasn't a rock concert, it wasn't a massive political rally. It was a simple public gathering of faith with singing, prayer, and worship. But basically, the city treated it like a hostile invasion. In typical fascist UK style, apparently you need a license to worship.
So I'm currently at the Spanish church in Montreal. As you know, Sean Ford is supposed to perform tonight, but now there is a lot of police officers who are surrounding the church at the moment. I know that some of them are inside. We know that the city said that they don't have the authorization to perform tonight and they are ready to deliver infraction notice.
It's because you don't have the permit to have the concert.
I don't think you need a permit to worship in a church. Last time I checked, you don't need a permit to worship.
Religious freedom, Radio Canada. It's religious freedom. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Religious freedom. You don't need a permit to worship Radio Canada.
Well, you have to research your laws on that.
My
But
God, it's incredible.
worshiping in a church, I don't believe you need a permit for that.
And of course, it wasn't just the city that came to shut the thing down. Of course, the woke Antifa crowd came, causing a total chaotic scene outside the church, and even one of the individuals throwing a freaking smoke bomb in the church.
But now they are stepping and blocking the traffic. Are you seeing a double standard?
So basically everybody showed up in force and shut it down. I mean, just utter anti-Christian hate and discrimination. But of course they'll never admit that. No, they're citing not having a special permit. And here's where the story gets a little bit murky, because from what I understand, the church had applied for a permit. They complied with all usual channels, but the city allegedly revoked the permit at the last minute, citing vague nonsense like public safety concerns and claiming that the worship leader, Sean, I don't know how to say his last name, Foykt? Well, he didn't reflect the city's values of inclusion. So you know exactly what that means, right? If this was an LGBTQ drag show for kids, they would have got the permit in 30 minutes flat, but because this was a Christian event, and the singer has connections to MAGA, as is being written all over the press, well, they treated this event differently, and instead took the UK route and said, "Oi, do you have a license for that?" Complete discriminatory crackdown. It's just such a wild thing to wrap my head around. You know, there's real crime happening, and as you know, across Canada, crime is on the uptick quite significantly, but instead of tackling serious issues, this is what government is up to instead, cracking down on events of worship. Just absolutely despicable stuff. But as per usual, with stories coming out of Canada, certainly not surprising. I mean, this seems to be the new Canada. Canada, let's not forget what they did to the trucker convoy protesters, peaceful working class Canadians who wanted their freedom back. Well, the latest update of that story is that the leaders of the trucker convoy, two individuals, Tamara Litch and Chris Barber, non-violent organizers, are now facing 7 years in prison. Well, let's also not forget what happened during the trucker convoy. The protesters were demonized by the Canadian government, called misogynists and racists by the woke clown Trudeau himself. People involved in the protests had their bank accounts frozen.
We are broadening the scope of Canada's anti-money laundering and terrorist financing rules so that they cover crowdfunding platforms and the payment service providers they use. A bank or other financial service provider will be able to immediately freeze or suspend an account without a court order.
Ontario invoked a state of emergency to respond to the blockades. This was the responsible and necessary thing to do. Today, to continue building on these efforts, the federal government is ready to use more tools at its disposal to get the situation fully under control.
They were essentially labeled terrorists. And of course, we can't forget the extreme crackdowns on liberty during the Canadian pandemic response. And that was another time where we saw discrimination and crackdown against the right to gather and worship. We seem to be watching a Western nation falling down the path of authoritarianism. It's no surprise why Joe Rogan refuses to perform in Canada.
Montreal, UFC 315, May 10th.
Wow. I won't be there.
I don't go to Canada anymore.
I don't.
No, nor should you. No, discipline.
Yeah, I'd rather go to Russia.
Yeah. 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 Hell yeah.
When they become the U.S., you never know.
That's never going to happen. That's so crazy to ask them to be the 51st state. I had a conversation with Trump about it. He goes, I started calling him Governor Trudeau just for fun. And a lot of people are saying it's a good idea. Like, maybe it is a good idea.
It's no surprise that Tucker Carlson said it outright that Canada needs to be, quote, liberated.
I mean, why should we stand back and let our biggest trading partner, the country with which we share the longest border, and actually, I could just say a great country. I love Canada. I've always loved Canada because of its natural beauty. Why should we let it become Cuba? Like, why don't we liberate it? We're spending all this money to liberate Ukraine from the Russians. Why are we not sending an armed force north to liberate Canada from Trudeau? And I mean it.
The way Canadian elected officials treat their own citizens, especially those who dare to oppose the regime narratives, the way they treat Christians, conservatives, and freedom-loving truckers is absolutely terrifying. It's sickening. It's wrong. Canada is not a free country. It's a progressive surveillance state that enforces ideological compliance under the guise of safety and inclusion. If you're pushing inappropriate adult lifestyles on children, you get the frickin' red carpet. But if you believe in God, family, and freedom, or national sovereignty, you're the enemy and you get the Canadian Gestapo. Enough pretending this is normal, enough pretending this is okay. Canada has fallen. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.